Hello, thanks for being in a new video. This time I have an unboxing of the OnePlus Nord 4. Let's get started. This device, let's say it's kind of a premium mid-range from OnePlus. Let's get to know it by taking the device out of the box. But first, let me tell you that in Mexico, it has arrived at a price of 12,999 pesos. On the screen, you see the reference price in dollars. This is for the 12GB RAM version with 256GB of storage. But there is also an edition with 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage at a price of 14,999 pesos. Again, you see the reference price in dollars just to give you an idea. But remember very well that the prices here are not the same as over there. In fact, for a rival promotion, OnePlus points out that the base version will cost 8,999 pesos for a limited time. And the higher version will cost 10,999 pesos for a limited time. After all this pricing information, let me start taking this device out of the box. And the first thing we come across is this little box. Let's take a look at what its contents are because everything seems to indicate that it will not come with a charger included. So let's take a look at it. Here we find the USB-A cable to USB-C with the traditional red tone of OnePlus. A simple cable, let's say. It doesn't seem to be very long in terms of length. Subsequently, there is the key to remove the tray. Then this little card for the entire Nord community. And lastly, the usual paperwork. Safety information and quick start guide. So as you can see, so far it doesn't seem to include a charger. Let's put this back and take a look at the rest of the box. And that's it. That's all that comes in the box. It really is a very short box. The charger has to be purchased separately, and that's a bit annoying, especially since OnePlus uses its own charging standard shared with Oppo. But that means it's not so easy to find some compatible charger that isn't necessarily the original charger. So I've got the device here, let's take a look at it. It's 7.99 millimeters thick and weighs 199.5 grams. It's a very nicely styled device. OnePlus points out that it's an all-metal built device. That is something uncommon in today's industry because they give preference to using plastic or glass because of how difficult it can be for the antennas to have a good connection. In this case, it seems that this top plate is not metal, it looks more like an acrylic plate. So possibly this is where most of the antennas are located, in addition to all the plastic bands that we find on the frame. Obviously, as I say, to help the antennas get connected. Another reason why manufacturers prefer not to use metal is that you can't put wireless charging on it, but being a mid-range device, we're still somehow not as used to seeing wireless charging. The truth of the matter is that this back cover looks exaggeratedly pretty. It gives it a very unique and very particular style. In fact, despite the fact that it looks like to the touch it will have some relief, the truth is that it will not. To the touch, it is almost completely smooth, although if you get to distinguish a small pattern and in fact also emits some sound, but it is not as exaggerated as it looks. I insist, it is a very nice device. Here at the front we have a 6.74-inch screen with a slightly higher resolution than Full HD+. It's 2772 by 1240 pixels. Evidently, it is an AMOLED screen that also supports HDR content and offers us 120 Hz in its refresh rate. Overall, it is a completely high-end display, very good. It also includes stereo sound with a speaker on the bottom and a speaker on the top with two outputs, one on the frame and one on the earpiece for calls. Here we will also find infrared for universal remote control. What we do not find is a headphone jack. And as you can see, it integrates in this part the alert slider with 3 positions to change the sound mode. The front camera is 16 megapixels with f-aperture 2.4 and fixed focus. The truth is that it looks like a simple front camera for those specifications. Here I have the preview before I took a picture, and still the whole background looked completely burnt out. It was a complicated photograph. After taking the picture, the device I think does good image processing, although the shadow area still looks a bit dark, but it's not too bad. I don't think it's a selfie specialist, but it doesn't come close to disappointing either. And something I like about the cameras of this device in conjunction with its screen is that they take advantage of the Pro XDR technology that, as you realize, allows some areas of the photograph have more brightness than others, and with this gives you a feeling of much more realism and highlight the textures much better. On the back we find 2 cameras. First, the main camera with a new 50 megapixel Sony lithium sensor with optical stabilization and f1.8 aperture. Then we find another Sony camera with 8 megapixels, in this case with f2.2 aperture for the ultra-wide camera. As they all count, it doesn't seem to be a photographic specialist either, because it doesn't have a third camera for zoom or anything like that, but in this price range it's still not that common, although there may be some manufacturers that incorporate it. And before I go through the photos in detail, I want you to note that here you can see more clearly the difference between using Pro XDR technology and not using it. Notice that the area that was impacted by the sunlight also shines very brightly when you review the picture on the screen of this device, which gives you a very positive experience. So we're looking at the ultra wide camera image here. It looks good. I don't think it's anything ultra spectacular, but it delivers. Now we're looking at the picture with the main camera, and it performs very similarly. And in this case, because it incorporates the Sony lithium sensor, it gives us a crop in the image for the digital zoom. So with the 2x photography, we still appreciate a good level of detail as well. Now you are seeing the result with the photograph at a 5x zoom setting, where you start to notice a little more than digital zoom. It is not seen with as much detail as the previous ones. Later we see the 10x zoom setting, and in this case it lets you go up to 20x, but it definitely looks very artificial and a bit forced. Here we're looking at the 50 megapixel mode on this device, and note that if we zoom in we're still going to see a good level of detail, so it does look like it's a sensor that's well utilized. Now we're looking at some examples of portrait photography, so you can see how without the need for a depth camera it manages to perfectly detect the foreground, blur the background, especially on objects. See how good quality it is. And something positive is that it also lets us take this portrait photograph from a perspective of 52mm as if we had a telephoto lens, and still retains good detail and good quality. In this sense, the results are very good for portrait photography. For video recording, note that it does manage to record in 4K up to 60 frames per second, something that in this price range is unusual, although with the ultra-wide camera you will only be able to record in full HD. In fact, the front-facing camera doesn't have the ability to record in 4K either. So, while it surprised us by supporting 4K at 60 frames per second, it is a bit disappointing that the front camera does not have the ability to record in 4K at least. The battery is 5500 mAh, a tremendous capacity, especially considering that it is a very thin and light device. In addition, it supports 100 watt charging, although that charger must be purchased separately. Of course, it does not support wireless charging, as I told you a moment ago, due to its metallic design, much less does it have reversible wireless charging. It comes with Android 14 and Oxygen OS 14.1 on it. And as you can see, it looks like they do take good care of its updates. It has 16 GB of RAM, although there is another version with 12. And it also has 512 GB of storage, although there is another version with 256. With the cell phone just turned on, without downloading any updates or any applications, it showed me 30.3 GB used. Which is a considerably high figure, but obviously having 512 in total, it doesn't feel like that much. So you still have plenty of free space left. And the processor is the Snapdragon 7 Plus Gen 3. If you want a reference, here I have the Geekbench benchmark score, where on multi-core it achieved 5,113 points and on single-core 1,883. So that you have a reference, with this score it is very similar in power to the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, which is a completely flagship processor. So the truth is, it's actually curious that this processor has come under the 7 series. It will probably have some other cutbacks in terms of camera handling capabilities or some other things, but in terms of raw power it's very similar. And with respect to Antutu, as you can see, it easily surpassed 1 million points, coming in at 1,209,098 points. Definitely that is an extremely powerful device, so for those who like to play games, it is possibly one of the most attractive options without sacrificing an exaggeratedly beautiful design. The alert slider, the camera of very good quality with Sony sensors, although it also has other details that I did not like as much as the front camera, and of course the fact that it does not come with charger, but this is just a first look. Soon we will have the full review available so you can get to know it in much more detail. For now we have reached the end of this video. If you liked it, you know you can let us know, and we'll see you next time.